Because there's no way we're going to let those assholes win.
No, there is not.
Rain is coming, girls.
The rebooted Wolfenstein series from Machine Games thus far has followed a pretty consistent cycle of releasing mainline games and then a side story game in between, taking place elsewhere in the timeline. The Old Blood was a prequel to the New Order, exploring the mission directly before the events of the first game. However, upon the release of Youngblood, the reception of this game was mixed, to say the least. But with drastic changes to the formula, narrative delivery, gameplay, and even studios developing it, why is it so middling? In this video, let's take a look at the good and the bad of Wolfenstein Youngblood and come to our own conclusions to the spin-off story. This will be the last part, for now, of the Wolfenstein series on this channel, so if you haven't seen those yet, go back and take a look at those videos. I'll leave a link up here in the top right somewhere. It would definitely mean a lot to me. And if you like these more long-form deep dives into games new and old, consider hitting that subscribe button. It would be very awesome of you to do this for me, and I hear it also increases your sex appeal by like 0.2%, which we all drastically need for watching video game videos on YouTube. With that out of the way, let's dive into Wolfenstein the Youngblood and see why it was so middling. Imagine for a moment you're going out to a meal. You go to Olive Garden because you're in the mood for some okay pasta and some pretty good breadsticks. As you walk in, you're met with a giant hibachi-style restaurant with a bunch of fat Japanese dudes just slicing that meat on top of that grill. I'd have to say that, and the fact that you were going there for pasta and breadsticks, you'd be pretty fucking confused, if not mad. Where are the goddamn breadsticks? This is pretty much how I felt the moment I opened up Wolfenstein the Youngblood. What was once a story-focused, visceral-playing, single-player first-person shooter was now a multiplayer, co-op focused, live service shoved in thing. Hell, this game isn't even made by Machine Games, but Arcane Studios led the charge on this one, known for their games like Dishonored and Prey. Now, I'm not opposed to studios trying new things with their franchise, and hell, I'm not even opposed to different studios kind of taking the reins on said franchise. Some devs even do it better than the original. See Treyarch with Call of Duty. But what makes that different is that it still feels like a Call of Duty game. Black Ops plays the same as Modern Warfare, which plays the same as Advanced Warfare. I mean, you get the drift. The restaurant analogy works here as well. You could have many different franchises of a restaurant, but they're all owned by different owners, operating kind of doing a similar but different kind of feel. And this is where my main complaint with Youngblood comes in. This does not feel like a Wolfenstein game. This feels like a senseless product under the guise of Wolfenstein in the time where Bethesda, before being bought by Microsoft, was kind of struggling to get titles onto the market that actually sell. Prey sold soft. We all saw what happened with Fallout 76. Dishonored has never really been a high seller, and Tango Gameworks, despite making great games like The Evil Within and Evil Within 2, have never sold all that well either. I mean, really, short of Bethesda Game Studios, Bethesda games really don't sell. They're for a niche audience. All these games had a ton of praise behind it, but sales were soft, and I'm not going to begrudge Bethesda for trying something different here. But let's look into Youngblood and see just how different the two games really are. From the onset, I want to make it clear I played this game solo and not co-op at all, which I'm sure is good. It may even make the game better, but I don't have friends, and so that's a moot point for me anyways. From the word go and you going into the main menu, the first option is play game as well as a message of the day. This should be the first clue that some live service bullshit has snuck into a single player franchise. You pick one of the Blazkowicz sisters and load out as well as how your character's armor looks. Another clue of some live service bullshit. And then you're met with either host or join a game. No clear way to play this single player or alone, like every other Wolfenstein game. Now, I'm not opposed to co-op, and I think that the mode can bring a lot of good to franchises, see games like Halo and Gears of War. But those games put solo players first, like Bethesda was saying at the time, and keeping the solo player experience alive. That aged poorly. Gameplay-wise falls pretty far as well. Remember all the stealth that could be used in the other Wolfenstein games, sneaking your way through to the commander of the level and level the playing field by sneaking and killing everyone running away like a ghost in the night? Good luck doing that here. That's not to say you can't, but these Nazis have fucking radars in the back of their heads, and as soon as one of their friends falls, boom, alarm, blowing all stealth and turning almost every encounter into a running gun fest. The stealth in this game is so broken that about a third of the way through the game, I had to just say fuck it and just engage everyone loud and mercilessly, which was still kind of fun. Not only was this way less frustrating than trying to sneak my way through like every other game in the series thus far, but was beneficial to your character as well, as now there's levels to your character, as well as your enemies. This is probably the biggest change to the core gameplay of Wolfenstein, and the most contentious one in my book. This was and still is a trend in my opinion, but the creation of levels for both yourself and the enemy is one I can't stand in most titles. It holds no real value to the player other than artificially giving you a sense of progression. Levels in Youngblood work like most games where you get some skill points for, killing a bunch of guys and earning that experience. This is once again fine, but in every other Wolfenstein game, you gain these perks and these special abilities or these percentage boosts by actually engaging with what you're leveling. And both Wolfenstein 1 and 2, if you were dual wielding all the time, your dual wielding would improve. If you're sneaking everywhere, you become like you're stepping a little bit quieter. If you're using stealth pistols to kill commanders, your pistols start doing more damage. Every aspect that you were leveling, you were engaging with at the same time, much like Skyrim and how their leveling system works. Not only that, but giving your enemies further levels as well, and they're like also leveling up as you go through the game, really just creates this artificial difficulty spike where you run into a guy with a skull and you know that you just shouldn't engage him because he's going to kill you. Looking back at every other Wolfenstein game, the enemy itself was the hard part. It wasn't artificially boosted by any sort of higher health pool, more damage output, or a random level difficulty. The shotgun guys were more armored than your standard Nazi fodder, and your super soldiers were more armored than that. But everybody still had a weakness and everybody still had a tell. Now every enemy takes just more bullets due to artificial difficulty spike as you go through the game. It was never needed and it creates just an out of character random progression system for the joy of seeing the numbers get bigger. I mean, hell, the enemies grow in level as you grow in level, so you're not even really progressing. They're just moving at the same pace you are. I really wish this trend in video games would stop, as these weird leveling systems in non-RPGs and trying to shove RPG elements into every other game known to man really gets old. Let the shooter stand on the shooter foot. If it's a quality shooter, people will play. You don't need levels to make that happen. Get rid of leveling in any other video game other than role-playing games, please. Going further into the systems, you now have an upgrade tree for both your character as well as your guns. These upgrades can be bought with coins found in the game and serve as the upgrades that you would get in the last two games. I don't really mind the system too much, other than the fact that just coins are kind of just littered throughout the world, and once again, give this weird artificial progression because these coins aren't rare. You're not finding anything special. You're just running in a circle and smashing X a bunch like you were for health and ammo back in the last two games, which you don't even do that in this one at all. The ammo and health just pick up. It also feels a little world-breaking that the Blazkowicz sisters would just be buying weapon parts in Nazi-occupied Paris. Either the Nazis are just letting all these weapon parts roam free in their underground, or they're just, just doesn't fit with the world very well in my book. Looking back at Wolfenstein 2, collecting those weapon kits made sense in the last game, as this just kind of feels out of place. Not to mention that there are coins literally everywhere in the world, and they're not hard to come by. More upgrades unlock as you gain your artificial levels, gating you from kitting out your favorite weapon until you reach this artificial threshold we've already beaten into the ground talking about so much. There's also skins you can buy for your weapons and armor as well for coins, or if you can't be fucked with to even look around in a circle and find them, gold bars that you can purchase for real money. Youngblood falls into this weird ground of like a half live service, half not, where skins are buyable, but there's no real updates to the game. It's just kind of a confusing system of monetization. It feels pretty scummy and gross, and as I said before, it doesn't feel like Wolfenstein. None of these other games had any sort of microtransactions in them. It's a shame too, because not being part of the core numbered series, this could definitely be somebody's first time into Wolfenstein, and it could be met with just kind of a messy, not really fleshed out live service, half-baked thing. I don't know. I feel like that just on this systems front, and especially having this live service stuff, it's just not a good look. You have to remember that this game was somebody's first Wolfenstein game for sure. And if you met with this, why would they ever go back? In terms of the level design, I have to say that part is pretty fucking good. And this is where Arcane really shows what they are made of in making some really cool levels, albeit not many of them in this game. Much like their other games, there's a ton to explore and tons of lore pieces to grab and shortcuts you can unlock and as you make your way through these levels. All these areas can be revisited and feel like they connect to each other pretty well, even though you just go back to the metro tunnels and hit a menu. There's a ton of verticality in these levels as well, allowing you to get high and rain hellfire on the Nazis from above, or sneak out of their line of sight, which is the only optimal way of sneaking in this game. If you played Dishonored or Prey, you can really see how these levels kind of feel like something out of those games, minus all the immersive sim elements of grabbing everything. Part of me almost wishes they had leaned more into the immersive sim aspects of it, but instead we get this cross between a Wolfenstein game and an immersive sim with levels mixed with some live service because it's 2019 and that's what we do. I do like the reusing of these levels, going back to them time and time again, as there's actually a pretty drastic number of side quests in this game, and some of them are pretty cool, like searching for a tape in a giant tape storage facility in one of these Nazi-controlled bases, or exploring a hospital to find some resistance member who's been captured and being tortured there. It's pretty varied, and they're kind of cool, and they give you some pretty good rewards as well as a shit ton of coins and experience, the two systems that we have just been bitching about. If you're looking to get your character a little bit more powerful, these are definitely worth doing. I did engage with most of them until about 2/3 of the way through before I kind of just said I'm over this game and wanted to see it to its completion. But there's a lot of side content for you if that's what you enjoy, and I gotta say they're pretty fun too. While the moment-to-moment combat feels fine, the movement in this game really stands out to me. Most so in the double jump. I love double jumps in games almost as much as I love grappling hooks, and this one feels really good. There's a ton of control in the jump and you go pretty fucking high, making these levels, like I said before, a bit more interesting and finding your own way through to the objective. However, you do always have a companion with you, whether you're playing in co-op or you're playing by yourself. If you're playing by yourself like I did, you have an AI-controlled other sister that's accompanying you through your journey. And I've got to say, it's probably as good as you imagine. She struggles to pick you up if you go down, God forbid you lose all your health. She stands in the middle of all the incoming Nazi fire. It feels like she misses every single one of her shots. So all in all, pretty fucking bad. The game truly would be better serviced if you were playing solo and you just had no AI character to accompany you. But in doing so, it would sacrifice the story. So it is what it is, and I get it. I just wish she was better at all, or at least okay. The AI just gets in the way more than she actually helps. You also have a shared life pool, meaning you can only go down 3 times between the two of you before you get a game over, and she wastes almost all of them. AI companions have never been the best, but this one really sucks, and a lot of my dislike of this game really stems from that. I really hope that Machine Games takes away the fact that nobody liked this, because I don't think anybody did. At least I sure as hell didn't. And I surely don't want Anya following BJ around for the finale and killing Hitler in Wolfenstein 3. So here's hoping we don't see any more AI companions at all.
I'll wager it is.
You?
Probably out on the plains somewhere. Clear skies ahead. Wind against my skin.
From here, we need to finally get to the truly left behind aspect of Wolfenstein Youngblood, and that is the narrative. Youngblood takes place 20 years after Wolfenstein 2. The United States has liberated itself mostly from the Nazi regime. We meet BJ and Anya and their 2 daughters, Jessie and Sophia. BJ is teaching Jess how to shoot a rifle, and Anya is showing Sophia some CQC combat, obviously always training to continuously kill more Nazis. One day, BJ goes missing, and with a visit from Grace Walker from Wolfenstein 2 and her now grown daughter Abby, the 3 daughters discover a hidden room full of BJ's old war stuff, discovering he ran off to Paris in search of something and was going to go meet with the French resistance there. The girls don't think that their moms are going to do anything about it, so stealing the helicopter Grace rode in on, the girls head off to France to locate BJ and figure out what the hell he's going to France for to find. Also located in the helicopter are 2 Dasudic power suits, to which the Blazkowicz sisters suit up to do what their dad taught them how to do: kill Nazis. Upon getting to France and finding the resistance, they meet Yu, who tests their skills before helping them, sending the girls to go kill a Nazi commander on board a Zeppelin that is flying over Paris. The problem is, the girls had never killed a Nazi before. Their first kill is a pretty good cutscene, both scared shitless, clumsy, and when they finally kill their first Nazi, puke from nerves and being covered with Nazi brain matter. Up until this point, this story's been pretty okay so far. It has some of the style of Wolfenstein, with humor mixed in with this type of espionage with a hint of over-the-top violence.
Oh my god, I got his brains in my mouth! Water, give me water!
Unfortunately, after the girls make their first kill, the ludonarrative dissonance sets in. Keep in mind, these girls have just killed their first Nazi. We see them struggling with how they're even going to do it and clumsily kill this single man. Now, after that first kill out of the way, they are now professional killing machines, literally murdering over 9,000 Nazis in the span of this game, without a single flinch or mention of, having killed so many Nazis ever. Much like Nathan Drake, who also proceeds to kill, 1,000 Russians in the span of one adventure, but struggles when he has to kill kill one person. It breaks the feeling that these teenagers haven't killed before any of these events, and yet because of the gameplay, we can dual wield, fly through the air, launch ourselves at giant Nazi mechs and the like. I get why, but it just feels off. After killing said Nazi general, who also has a power suit like the girls, they head back down to Yu and the French resistance to show that they can kill fucking Nazis. Yu lets the girls know that BJ was headed to a place called Lab X, which is locked down currently in Paris somewhere, and the girls must hack the mainframe computers in the 3 security towers, also called the Three Brothers, in order to gain access. With the sisters having their mission to find their dad, and this being really the only lead, they proceed with said task. After hacking all 3 towers, Abby overhears a plot between Yu and the other mute French resistance member, discovering that there are actually Nazis in hiding, with the guy, Lothar, wanting to start the Fourth Reich, and now with Lab X unlocked, thanks to the Blazkowicz sisters, plan on disposing them upon their return and begin their revolution with the weapons and research located inside that lab. Abby warns the girls, and playing into their ruse, pretend to drink the drugged wine that was supposed to knock them out. A pretty dope-ass fight scene occurs here with the sisters coming out on the losing end, but Abby getting the worst of it, getting a knife jammed in her eyeball. This scene is pretty hard to watch for the grisly aspects of pulling said knife out of an eyeball, but this scene really starts to feel like Wolfenstein in this rebooted series. The girls, guided now by their now depth perceptionless Abby, head to Lab X to hunt Yu Lothar and find their dad BJ. Upon reaching the deepest level of the labs, they run into their dad, who's been hiding out down there, still donning the American flag everywhere he sets up shop. He explains that after killing Hitler in 1960, spoilers, he kills Hitler, a sort of doomsday device was activated, where some insane Nazi technology is slowly making the world uninhabitable with crazy climate change. In his travels of Lab X, he also discovered that there's multiple dimensions of reality, having seen one where the Nazis actually lost World War II and the world was at peace. Now, it's pretty much an on-the-nose reference that is our timeline that we are currently here existing in that day, as the Nazis did, in fact, lose World War II. With this weird Das Judic artifact from Wolfenstein 2 in hand, he's able to break it into and upgrade the girls' power armor even further, giving them more abilities to stop bullets and use what I can only refer to as the Force. Ambushed by Nazis, the girls go to put an end to Lothar and Yu. Killing Yu with an elevator door and having an insane boss fight on top of the tower with Lothar, the girls finish him off, but not before he tells his allies to march on Berlin to stage the coup to begin the Fourth Reich. Grace and Anya, having flown from the United States, just showing up now, and BJ go off to find their friends in order to engage the new Nazi regime now growing in the center of Germany. The girls decided to stay back in Paris, France to help the resistance continue fighting Nazis. We end credits. Now, this may be in fact the shortest narrative section I've ever done, which for a Wolfenstein game is pretty disappointing. Not to mention there's also like 4 cutscenes in this entire game, 2 at the very front and 2 at the very end. It's obvious that the writers over at Machine Games probably had not a lot of hand of this, in my opinion, as it all feels pretty lackluster and not fully thought out. I literally found myself forgetting what the end goal was at about the 6 to 8 hour mark of playtime in between the beginning and end events, due to any sort of lack of cohesion of cutscenes, cool moments, or standout segments. It's obvious this game was hamstrung by the live service co-op aspect, not to mention the super short dev time in between games. The Old Blood was short like this, but it had many story moments, and that game still felt like Wolfenstein. Youngblood is like that third adjacent cousin by marriage. It has ties, but they're not really deep and definitely not even relatable to their predecessors. But most of all, I felt this story was boring. Nothing really happened. You got your one goal. You did your main goal. A small twist happens. You find your dad like you pretty much knew you were going to do, and then kill the 2 bad guys that just showed up literally about 3/4 of the way through the game. It's just, there was no real attention grabbing moments. Nothing was really, I don't know. It just didn't really hit, in my opinion, because there was nothing that made me go, oh, I care about all these characters. I care about BJ and Anya because I've seen them for 2 games. I don't really care about Jess or Sophia, other than I'm supposed to care because it's their daughters. It just doesn't really work, in my opinion. You need to make a character stand on their own, and this game just kind of felt like we wanted to retread some weird ground, make a side story tangent thing, and it doesn't work. It just doesn't work, in my opinion. This narrative was boring. It did nothing for me. Compared to every other Wolfenstein game that's really hit home, this one just feels like a complete mess.
Man, looks like we need to use those things on the side to reach the top.
In conclusion, all in all, I found Wolfenstein Youngblood a pretty lackluster experience. Between the forced co-op, AI partners, a lackluster story that started with so much promise, and stilted presentation, playing this felt more like a chore to me. Compared to the other 3 games in the series thus far, where I literally could not stop playing them and I had to eventually just tell myself to go to bed, ruining any sort of hope of me playing any other game. This is by far the weakest and I feel the most desperate try to get a game out attempt, shoving it out half-heartedly with monetization just crammed in, and this may be conjecture, didn't sell all that much and just alienated the audience of these games more and more. You don't hear this game talked about, and for good reason. I really hope Bethesda Machine Games took away the right lessons from this, I would call it an abject failure, and go back to making Wolfenstein 3 a true predecessor to the masterpiece of Wolfenstein 2. I want the Olive Garden, not a Japanese hibachi restaurant. And with that, we bring this video and the current run of the Wolfenstein series on this channel to a close. Thank you everyone for your time in watching this, and if you made it to the end, you're obligated to smash that like button, leave a comment down below, and if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, you're doing it wrong. We're moving on from Wolfenstein, and so if you've watched this entire series, I want to say thank you. I put a lot of time and work into these, and all the love really helps. And thank you to my editor Sunrax for coming out and helping me with these and making these videos way better than I ever possibly could. I believe in trying to use other people's talents to the best of their abilities and to help to make some cool shit. And with Sunrax coming on, I think that we're going to be making some cool shit. Also helps that he's an awesome dude. So his links are in the description down below. So you can hit him up if you have any questions or comments or just want some help with something. With that, we're going to bring this video to a close. And as always, my name is Brendan, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
A temporary setback. We cannot do this alone. We need to go and reach out to all our allies across the world.
Wait, does this mean
You're leaving us?
We're putting you in charge of things for a while we're gone.
We can handle it.
Our girls can handle anything.
Hell to the yeah.